So, Bishop Ellis, let's start with you. It's been a long journey. It's been a very long 2 years. Everybody has had to change something. Tell us how things are going at Greater Grace as we move into this, I guess, third or fourth stage of the pandemic, and more things are possible than they were before.
I guess the thing that I'm most proud of, Stephen, thank you for having me, is that we've been able to continue ministry. And that's the most important thing. You know, how do you face crisis? How do you go through a pandemic, which we have never experienced, and still continue ministry? And of course, maybe we were shut down for maybe April and May, Father's Day 2020. We started outdoor services and we just went indoors last November, the first Sunday, and we've continued. And things seem to be pretty safe and people are getting along well. So I'm thankful that we've been able to continue ministry in the midst of the pandemic. And probably the biggest thing we're doing now is making sure that we have options, not just for television or tape delayed, but live options for a live service. And that means we're having service live and we're being able to share it live as well.
Yeah. When did you go back to in person, in the church, people coming back and getting together?
First Sunday in November 2021. So we were outside for maybe, I don't know, about 18 months thereabout.
Wow.
Over the winter, Stephen.
Yeah, that's right. Outside in the winter.
I was not inside on a screen outside. I was outside.
Right. Reverend Bland, tell us how things are going at church here.
Well, Liberty Temple has, as Bishop Ellis said, had to make the adjustments and adaptations, but by the grace of God, we are thriving and going forward. Similarly, March 22nd was our last day of worship 2020. So we just hit the 2-year mark just a couple of days ago that we vacated at least our sanctuary as far as in-person worship. But as I said to so many people, the church didn't close, we were just redeployed. So we had church and engaging new mechanisms. And of course, the virtual reality pushed most of us beyond what we were already doing, and some were not doing anything much at all. So now it's a commonplace notion that if you're doing church, period, you have to have some form of virtual presence. And so people are moving with a balance of theology and technology now is proficiency. So we're getting technicians and sound and video engineers like we used to get musicians and choir directors and things of that nature. So that has been a common reality. We went back slowly. We took our time. We did a lot of surveying, a lot of praying. We did a lot of the options, as Bishop Ellis was saying, outdoor, other things of that nature. But we put people's safety first. And we continued to make sure that we were in compliance with whatever the state officials and the CDC guidelines and others. We were in touch with that. Council Baptist pastors never stopped meeting. We met weekly, but on virtual platforms, talk about the science, met with all of the health professionals. What we decided to do after last year, a month before Bishop Ellis in October, we decided to go back to the old Southern roots of first and third. So, you know, in the Southern reality, they would go to church on first and third because they didn't have enough pastors to cover churches. So we did first Sunday for communion where people could come and gather together. And then third Sunday was our specialty Sunday. So in November, that would be Thanksgiving service. In December, that would be Christmas service. In January, that'd be Martin Luther King service. February, that was Black History Month. So we used that as our specialty service to get people used to coming back. And next month in April, first Sunday in April, we will begin to do every Sunday. So we will have first Sunday communion, Palm Sunday, second Sunday, Easter Sunday, and just continue from that vein. So it's been strategic and planned. And so far, people have adapted to it quite well. We will still do the masking, the social distancing, and take serious that health is primary, health is first. But all of our churches in the council have had different kinds of approaches. But the one thing we have done is put faith over fear.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just so moving to think of April being the first month that you go back to every Sunday, and you know how important, of course, that church that month is in the Christian faith. That's pretty remarkable. Reverend Thomas, tell us what's going on in your world.
Well, things have been going well. We've been open all 2021. Most people have voted with their feet on whether or not they would come or not. We've been probably having about 30% of our congregation that would come in person, and then the remainder watching over Facebook Live. It has really been interesting. It has forced us to examine church outside of the box. All right. Brightmoor, I'd like to tell people, we were pre-pandemic. And so for us, a lot of the ills that other folks were coming common to, we were already dealing with. So it's kind of like we already had some things already in place. I guess the biggest thing that we were able to accomplish, and the thing I'm most glad about, is we kept our feeding ministry open, and we just shifted the way we did it. And so previously it was closer to like a community kitchen, soup kitchen type situation where people would come in, sit down and eat. All right. And we were looking at how we could still do that. So we moved to a carryout format. And in the midst of that, a guy called me, and the guy said, Pastor, I've got COVID and my family won't come near me and I need food. And so he said, can you bring me some food? And so we were like, yeah, we can bring you some food. And of course, we were concerned like everyone else, and we brought it to his door and called him. And then I went back to the office and I thought about how many more people are like him. How many more people are out there? And we, people don't like to say the term, especially in Christianity, that we were afraid, but many people were afraid, and that's just the truth. All right. And so we decided to change our motto to delivery. So now we deliver about 150 meals per day, 4 days out of the week. All right, to our seniors, our unhoused, to our poor population within a 4-mile radius of our church. And it's interesting because prior to COVID, I would have never thought of delivering the food. So it's almost like we're free DoorDash.
Yeah.
All right. So it has caused us just to re-examine ministry and the ways that we can effectively serve the body of Christ and beyond.
Yeah. So I want to spend a little time talking about how everything that's happened over the next 2 years kind of permanently changes some of the ways that that we think about church and ministry, and I guess some of the needs. I mean, Reverend Thomas talking about this profound need to feed people on the outside of the church. I would imagine that all of you are experiencing, a revelation of needs that your congregations have that maybe we weren't so focused on before. So Bishop Ellis, again, I'll start with you. Let me know what is permanently altered, I guess, by all of this.
Well, let me say that let me deal with spiritual food, and then I'll let some of them deal with natural food and those things. There was a time we always had a captive audience at church. So we could go for 2 hours, we could go for 3 hours. Nobody's going to walk out. Nobody wants to walk out. It's almost sacrilegious to walk out of church. You know what I'm saying? While the ministry is going on, or while the offering is going on, or while the music ministry is going on. Certainly the preach word. But now I've realized that we don't have a captive audience. If people don't like what I'm saying, if it's taking me too long to get to the point, whatever, they've walked out of church virtually, what I'm saying? And they've gone to somebody else's church. It could be over in Australia or whatever the case is, because everything is virtual now, in that virtual space, I should say. So that has changed me forever, Steve. I mean, I'm making sure that my message from beginning to end, because for so long, we all have built a little bells and whistles and a little fluff in there, here and there. But now I make sure that my message is from beginning to end. I'm at the point. I'm getting to the point. I'm not saying anymore, I'm not going to keep you long, because when the preacher says that, you better get a nap. You better get some no-dos and everything. But Stephen, now I'm not saying anything. I'm getting right to my text, getting right to building that message, hitting the main point, and bringing the doxology. So that has changed for me, because you can see, and I have people monitoring, when those numbers are up on Facebook and those social media platforms, and when those numbers go down, and the numbers come up when I get ready to preach, what I'm saying? And when I'm done, I'm getting ready to receive the offering and doing announcements and all that, the numbers go down. So I'm saying, hey, I got to get to going with what I'm going to do in presenting my message. So my whole ministry presentation it has changed. And I think it's changed forever. So that's the spiritual food. I'm trying to get them fed and not talk about the menu and not talking about here's the special of the day. You've been sitting in a restaurant, you're like, hey man, listen, I come here all the time. I know what I want to eat. Can you just take my order? I don't know water. I don't know appetizer. I want a steak and some potatoes and some spinach and let's move on down the road. So that has changed me forever in terms of my ministry presentation. So I'll leave that as spiritual food has changed me in serving the people.
Yeah, yeah. Reverend Bland, tell me what's different about the way that you minister in your church now.
Well, I think a lot has changed. The post-COVID-19 culture has shifted how we think about, I think, church in its full dynamic. Our delivery systems, of course, are different in terms of making sure that those platforms increase. I'm pleasantly surprised to be able to know that we are able to quantitatively reach more people, I think, through the platforms we have now than we were before. So I think that most of us realized that while we were in some sense of fear and trepidation of not being in church, our platforms now are starting to connect with people that we weren't reaching, that weren't coming into our building. And so we have to permanently plan with them in mind so that when we do that, our worship platforms, our Christian education platform, the way we do evangelism, the way we do just about everything needs to be mindful that we are in a global mentality, that we are actually moving and speaking to people. So some things we normally even would say or deal with that was internalized to our local fellowship needs to now be dealt with so that we are speaking to people and speaking life to people beyond the reach that we once had. Similar to Pastor Thomas, our ability to become mobile in our delivery systems, people would come to the church to get things often and things of that nature. And now the church has had to get beyond its four walls and realize we were always the salt of the earth and the light of the world, not the salt of the church and the light of our members. So, we've had to get to where they are. So we've had to increase tremendously the export of how we help people to help people. And I think that has been a real open learning lesson. And then, we are a culture that likes to hug and shake hands and, do things of that nature. And it was awful difficult, because most of us in our sermons, we tell them, people getting a high five and a fist bump and this, that, and the other. But we had to be mindful of making sure we weren't doing things that could cause people any fear and trepidation or harms, even when it came to the disciplines of communion or baptism, things that are sacred to the church. We had to rethink everything and begin to know what types of things now must we deal with that can change and what things must we begin to adapt. So again, our principles, we are holding fast to, our practices, everything is up for examination so that we might be practical, particularly to reach a new age. But again, that's what we should be doing. We should be discerning the times and have wisdom for the present age.
So, Reverend Thomas, your church is in an area of the city that, as you point out, was hard hit before the pandemic. I know that the pandemic was also more brutal, is really the way to put it, on parts of the city than others. And I know that Brightmoor has really suffered through it. So I wonder, given all of that, what's different? What's permanently different in your church and in your ministry?
Dr. Bland really touched on a number of things. It was interesting. We did Facebook prior to the pandemic, but honestly, we did it for members who couldn't make it to church. All right, never really thinking beyond what a tremendous evangelistic tool that it is. So now my sister watches me from South Carolina. All right, my brother's in Tampa, Florida, watching me. All right, and I was convicted. I mean, I never thought about using that medium to reach folks. And it is the new highway and byway. All right, and so our children and our grandchildren are online constantly. And very similar to the educational system. We sucked at it. We just were not looking at it. You would think that we would have things prepared for online learning. All right, because our kids are used to screen time. All right, they're not like us. We wanted to go out and play when we were kids. but our kids, my granddaughter, she wanted a tablet for her birthday. 6-year-old child, that's what she wanted, a tablet. All right, and so I think that's probably the most the biggest thing that I will hold on to going forward. I've been kind of stubborn. I have really kind of resisted. I'm gonna learn from Bishop, all right, that, I pretty much still preach the same way. All right, I am concerned about conforming. Just my personal concern, not about other folks. Okay, all right. And so, of course, you have to cut the time, because he is right. The numbers go up at a certain point and they come down at
And
another
they can come
point.
down. Yeah.
Right. But then I also realize that there are people that are watching Sunday service now on Wednesday. There are people who are coming on Sunday service because, when you look at the algorithms and look at all the different things, there are people that watch me at 6 o'clock on Sunday instead of at 10:30 in the morning. All right. And so just been trying to be disciplined about being who and what God has called me to be, and serving who he's called me to serve. All right. And so, and embracing this change. And, there's another challenge in the dynamic for us, because we're a smaller church, and I hate to put it this way, but we're a poor church. We're in a poor community.
Sure.
All right. And so I don't have any engineers. Okay. All right. And so really finding young people and empowering them has been another great dynamic of this, that, my engineer is like 14. And I'm like, hey man, get the Facebook up.
Help me get this online.
And so God has been good. I really have enjoyed this season, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Great to have all three of you here. And it's so wonderful to hear about the way that the Black church just persists, right? It survives everything.
Resilient.
It has survived everything. And what you guys are talking about is just the latest iteration and chapter in that centuries-long narrative. So thanks very much for being here with us on American Black Journal.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you, Stephen. Blessings
Thank
on you
you
and your family.